Maya Rodriguez adjusted the IV drip with the practiced precision of someone who had spent too many nights in hospital rooms, but this time she wasn't saying goodbye to her own son. This time she might have the chance to help someone else's son come home. The antiseptic smell of Stanford Hospital's intensive care unit transported her back to those final weeks with Carlos at Yale New Haven, where the rhythmic beeping of monitors had become the soundtrack to her heartbreak. But standing outside the consultation room where she would meet Richard Hamilton, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in 2 years, the possibility that her expertise could bring healing instead of witnessing loss. Dr. Sarah Chen emerged from the elevator, her white coat crisp despite the early morning hour. She offered Maya a warm smile that reached her tired eyes. "Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for coming so early. Mr. Hamilton is eager to meet you." "Of course," Maya replied, smoothing down her navy blazer, the same one she'd worn to countless job interviews since leaving her position at Yale New Haven. "How is Tyler doing today?" "Stable, which is what we hope for at this stage." Dr. Chen's expression grew more serious as they walked toward the consultation room. "I should prepare you, Mr. Hamilton is very protective of his son. Tyler's been through several caregivers since the accident, and none have worked out long-term." Maya nodded, understanding the weight behind those words. Families dealing with traumatic brain injuries often cycled through care providers, not because of incompetence, but because the emotional toll became too heavy for those who weren't truly committed to the long journey ahead. The consultation room was small but comfortable, with 2 chairs facing each other across a narrow table. Richard Hamilton stood as they entered, and Maya's first impression was of a man carrying the world on his shoulders. He was tall, probably in his early 50s, with graying hair that looked like he'd been running his fingers through it. His expensive suit couldn't hide the exhaustion in his dark eyes. "Mr. Hamilton, this is Maya Rodriguez," Dr. Chen said, making the introduction. "Maya, Richard Hamilton." Richard extended his hand, and Maya noticed the firm grip, the slight tremor that spoke of too much coffee and too little sleep. "Ms. Rodriguez, thank you for considering this position. Please sit down." As they settled into their chairs, Maya observed Richard's careful study of her credentials folder. She'd learned to read the subtle signs, the pause at her address in Bridgeport, the quick calculation of her age, the assessment of whether she looked professional enough to handle a millionaire's son. She'd been through this evaluation process enough times to recognize it. "Your references from Yale New Haven are impressive." Richard began, his voice carrying the measured tone of a businessman accustomed to making important decisions. 8 years in pediatric intensive care, specialized training in neurological recovery protocols. Dr. Chen speaks very highly of your work with brain injury patients. "Thank you," Maya replied. "I love my work there. Children have an incredible capacity for healing when they have the right support system." Richard leaned forward slightly. "What made you leave the hospital to pursue private care?" Maya had prepared for this question, though the real answer was more complicated than what she typically shared with potential employers. "I wanted to provide more individualized attention than hospital settings allow. In the ICU, I might have 6 or 7 patients at once. Private care means I can focus entirely on one child's recovery, build the kind of consistent relationship that really makes a difference." "And what brings you to apply for this specific position?" "Working with a 16-year-old who's been in a coma for 10 weeks isn't exactly what most people would consider an ideal situation." Maya met his gaze directly. "Because every child deserves someone who believes in their recovery. Tyler may not be responding right now, but his brain is still working, still capable of healing. He needs someone who will treat him like the person he is, not just like a medical condition to manage." Something shifted in Richard's expression, a softening around his eyes that suggested her words had reached him. "Tyler is a wonderful kid, popular at school, played lacrosse, had plans for University of Vermont. He was driving some friends home from a party when a delivery truck ran a red light." His voice caught slightly. "The doctors say he took the worst of the impact, protecting his passengers." "That tells me something important about his character," Maya said gently. "That protective instinct, that caring for others, those are the kinds of qualities that can motivate recovery." They give him something to fight for. Dr. Chen, who had been quietly observing their interaction, spoke up. Maya, would you like to see Tyler before we discuss the specifics of the care arrangement? Very much. They made their way through the hospital corridors, past the familiar sights and sounds that Maya knew so well. The squeak of sneakers on polished floors, the distant chiming of elevator bells, the soft conversations between families clustered around vending machines. It was a world she'd once inhabited as a professional, but now she experienced it from the other side, as someone seeking a way to channel her skills toward healing rather than helpless observation. Tyler's room was in the neurological ICU, a quiet wing where the lighting was softer and the pace more measured. Richard paused outside the door, his hand hovering over the handle, as if he needed a moment to gather himself before entering. It never gets easier, he admitted quietly. Seeing him like this, Maya placed a gentle hand on his arm. That's because you love him. The day it gets easier is the day you should worry. Inside the room, Tyler Hamilton lay still, beneath crisp white sheets, connected to a constellation of monitors and machines. He was a handsome teenager Maya could see, with his father's strong jawline and dark hair that had grown long during his hospitalization. His face was peaceful, unmarked by the trauma his brain had endured. Maya approached the bed with the quiet confidence of someone who had spent years working with unconscious patients. She observed the positioning of his arms, the slight muscle tension in his neck, the way his eyes moved beneath closed lids during REM sleep cycles. "Hello, Tyler," she said softly, her voice carrying the warmth she'd used with countless young patients. "My name is Maya. Your dad asked me to come meet you." Richard watched as Maya gently took Tyler's hand, checking his muscle tone and reflexes with the practiced touch of an experienced nurse. She spoke to Tyler as if he could hear every word, explaining what she was doing and why. "I know you can't answer me right now, but I want you to know that I'm here because I believe you're going to get better. I've worked with lots of kids who've been through what you're going through, and I've seen incredible recoveries. Your brain just needs time to heal, and I'm hoping I can help with that process." Maya's voice took on a slight accent as she spoke, the musical cadence of her Puerto Rican heritage, adding warmth to her words. She seemed to notice Tyler's slight movement when she mentioned working with other children, though it could have been coincidence. "What do you see?" Richard asked quietly. "I see a strong young man whose body is working hard to heal itself. His muscle tone is good, his reflexes are present, and his brain activity patterns on the monitors suggest he's processing auditory stimuli. These are all positive signs." Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. "Maya has excellent observational skills. She notices details that other caregivers sometimes miss." Maya spent another few minutes with Tyler, speaking to him about the beautiful autumn day outside, about the college brochures she'd noticed on his bedside table, about how proud his father obviously was of him. Her manner was neither overly emotional nor clinically detached. She spoke to him like a person with respect and genuine warmth. As they prepared to leave Tyler's room, Maya noticed the way Richard lingered at his son's bedside, adjusting the blanket that was already perfectly arranged, checking the water level in the bedside cup that Tyler couldn't use. The gestures of a father trying to find ways to care for a child he couldn't actually help. "The doctors say there's no timeline for recovery," Richard said, as they walked back toward the consultation room. "He could wake up tomorrow or next month, or—" He didn't finish the sentence. "That's the hardest part for families," Maya acknowledged. "The uncertainty. But what I can promise is that if you hire me, Tyler will have someone with him who understands both the medical aspects of his care and the emotional support he needs. I'll talk to him, read to him, play music, do physical therapy exercises. I'll treat him like the person he is, not just like a patient." They returned to the consultation room to discuss the practical details. Richard explained that he'd had Tyler's bedroom modified with hospital-grade equipment, that there would be regular visits from Dr. Chen and other specialists, that Maya would have access to whatever resources she needed. "I should mention," Richard said, hesitating slightly, "my mother lives on the property as well. She's protective of Tyler. She may need some time to adjust to having someone new in the house." Maya smiled. Grandmothers who love their grandchildren can be some of the best allies in recovery. I understand protective instincts. There's one more thing, Richard said, his tone becoming more serious. I need to know that you understand this isn't just a job. Tyler needs consistency, someone who won't leave when the situation gets difficult or when a better opportunity comes along. He's already been through too much disruption. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking of Carlos, of the promise she'd made to herself to find a way to honor his memory by helping other children. Mr. Hamilton, I can't promise that Tyler will recover quickly or that there won't be setbacks. But I can promise that if you hire me, I will treat Tyler with the same dedication I would show my own child. He'll have someone who believes in him, fights for him, and never gives up on his potential for healing. Richard studied her face, seeming to weigh her words against his fears and hopes. Finally, he extended his hand across the table. When can you start? Tomorrow, if you'd like. Good. My assistant will show you to your quarters this afternoon so you can get settled. Dr. Chen will provide you with Tyler's complete medical file and care protocols. He paused, then added, Tyler's been through enough. He deserves someone who will see him as more than just another case. Maya shook his hand firmly. He won't be just another case, Mr. Hamilton. He'll be my priority. As they concluded their meeting and Richard departed to handle business matters, Dr. Chen walked Maya back toward Tyler's room. You should know, she said quietly, that Richard's been very cautious about finding the right person. Tyler's mother died of cancer 5 years ago, and Richard has been both mother and father since then. This accident has been devastating for him. I understand. Losing a spouse, and then facing the possibility of losing a child, I can't imagine carrying that kind of fear. Dr. Chen glanced at her curiously. You sound like you speak from some experience with loss. Maya was quiet for a moment, then said simply, I had a son. He died 2 years ago from leukemia. He was 8. Dr. Chen stopped walking. Maya, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. It's not something I mention in job interviews, but it's why I do this work now. I couldn't save Carlos, but maybe I can help save someone else's child. They stood in the hospital corridor, the weight of shared understanding passing between them. Dr. Chen had seen many families face the unthinkable, and she recognized the particular strength that came from surviving the loss of a child. Tyler is lucky to have found you, she said finally. Richard made the right choice. That afternoon, Maya drove her modest Honda Civic through the affluent streets of Westport, following the directions to the Hamilton estate. The contrast between her small apartment in Bridgeport and this neighborhood was stark, sprawling properties with manicured lawns, luxury cars, and circular driveways, the kind of old money elegance that spoke of generations of privilege. The Hamilton estate was set back from the road behind tall hedges and an iron gate that opened automatically as she approached. The house itself was a beautiful colonial painted pristine white, with black shutters, and surrounded by gardens that were transitioning into their autumn glory. Maya could see why Tyler would want to come home to this place. Richard met her at the front door, leading her through rooms filled with comfortable furniture and family photographs. She noticed images of Tyler at various ages playing lacrosse, graduating from middle school, laughing with friends. There were also photos of a beautiful woman with Tyler's dark eyes, whom Maya assumed was his mother. Catherine would have loved you, Richard said, noticing her gaze lingering on one of the family portraits. She always said Tyler needed people in his life who saw his heart, not just his potential. Maya's quarters were in a wing of the house that maintained privacy while keeping her close to Tyler's modified bedroom. The space was comfortable and well appointed, with a sitting area, private bathroom, and large windows overlooking the garden. It was far nicer than anywhere she'd lived since Carlos died. Tyler's room is just down the hall, Richard explained, showing her the medical equipment that had been installed. Dr. Chen worked with a medical supply company to make sure we have everything needed for his care. There's a monitoring system that connects to your room, so you'll know immediately if anything changes. As they completed the tour, an older woman appeared in the hallway. She was elegantly dressed despite the late hour, with silver hair styled in a neat bob and sharp blue eyes that immediately assessed Maya from head to toe. Mother, this is Maya Rodriguez Tyler's new caregiver. Maya, my mother, Victoria Hamilton. Victoria extended a perfectly manicured hand, her grip firm but brief. Ms. Rodriguez, Richard tells me you have extensive experience with neurological patients. Yes, ma'am. 8 years at Yale New Haven, specializing in pediatric brain injuries. And what brings you to private care? Surely the hospital offered better stability and benefits? Maya could sense the subtext in the question. What Victoria really wanted to know was whether Maya was here for the money or the genuine opportunity to help Tyler. I prefer the individualized attention that private care allows. Hospital nursing requires dividing attention among multiple patients. Tyler deserves someone who can focus entirely on his recovery. Victoria nodded slowly, though her expression remained guarded. Tyler is very precious to us, Ms. Rodriguez. We've been disappointed before by people who seemed committed, but ultimately had other priorities. I understand your concerns, Mrs. Hamilton. Tyler will be my only priority while I'm here. After Victoria departed and Richard had shown Maya the rest of the house, she found herself alone in her new room, unpacking the modest collection of belongings that represented her life since Carlos's death. She placed his framed photograph on the bedside table, the same ritual she performed in every new place she lived. Carlos smiled back at her from the frame, 8 years old and radiant, despite the baseball cap that covered his head during chemo treatments. Help me help him, mijo, she whispered in Spanish, touching the glass gently. Let me find a way to turn our pain into something healing. The monitoring system chimed softly, indicating that Tyler's vital signs were stable as he slept down the hall. Maya changed into comfortable clothes and made her way to his room, where she would spend her first night watching over someone else's son, hoping that this time her vigil would end in recovery rather than goodbye. Tyler's room was softly lit by medical monitors and a small bedside lamp. Maya settled into the comfortable chair that had been placed beside his bed, close enough to hold his hand, if needed far enough to respect his space. She pulled out the small journal she always carried and began to write her first entry about Tyler Hamilton, not as a patient, but as a young man with his whole life ahead of him, waiting for someone to believe in his return to the world. As Maya settled into the quiet rhythm of night duty, watching over Tyler's peaceful sleep, she whispered a prayer in Spanish to Carlos's memory, asking him to guide her in helping Tyler find his way back to the family who loved him. Unaware that Victoria was standing in the doorway, listening to the foreign words she couldn't understand, and wondering what this stranger was really planning for her grandson. Within a week of Maya's arrival, the gossip mill at Riverside's Main Street diner was working overtime, and none of it was in her favor. The autumn air carried the scent of wood smoke and dying leaves as Maya established her daily routine with Tyler. Each morning began before dawn with careful monitoring of his vital signs and administration of medications that Dr. Chen had prescribed. Maya had learned to read the subtle rhythms of his body, the way his breathing deepened during certain sleep cycles, how his muscle tension shifted throughout the day, the barely perceptible movements that might indicate awareness beneath the surface of his coma. 3 weeks into her employment, Maya had noticed something the medical charts didn't capture. Tyler's heart rate increased whenever she sang the Spanish lullabies her mother had taught her, the same songs she had hummed to Carlos during his darkest nights at the hospital. It was a small change, but Maya had learned to pay attention to small changes. Buenos dias, Tyler, she said softly as she entered his room on this particular October morning, carrying a cup of the strong Puerto Rican coffee she brewed each day. The aroma always seemed to fill the house with warmth, and she'd noticed Richard often lingered in the kitchen when she was preparing it. Maya settled into her routine of morning care, checking the feeding tube, adjusting his position to prevent bed sores, moving his arms and legs through the physical therapy exercises that would maintain his muscle tone. As she worked, she talked to him about the changing weather outside, about the college applications she'd seen on his desk that suggested his dreams of studying environmental science at University of Vermont. Your father told me you wanted to work in conservation, she said, gently massaging circulation back into his hands. There's so much beautiful country in Vermont. Carlos always wanted to see the mountains there. He used to look at pictures in library books and imagine what the air would smell like. Maya paused in her work, remembering how Carlos had collected travel brochures from the hospital waiting room, dreaming of places he would visit when he got better. She had saved those brochures, keeping them in a small box with his other treasures. Maybe when you wake up, you can tell me about the mountains. She continued, beginning the gentle range of motion exercises for Tyler's legs. Carlos would have liked that story. As she spoke about her son, Maya began humming one of the lullabies, Duérmete, mi niño, a song about guardian angels watching over sleeping children. Tyler's heart rate monitor registered a subtle but consistent increase, though Maya was careful not to read too much into what could be coincidental fluctuations. Richard appeared at the doorway, dressed for his commute to the Hamilton Development offices in Greenwich. He had been observing Maya's morning routine for the past week initially to ensure Tyler was receiving proper care, but increasingly because he was struck by the natural warmth she brought to what could have been purely clinical interactions. "Good morning," he said quietly, not wanting to interrupt her work. "Good morning, Mr. Hamilton." Tyler had a peaceful night, his vitals remained stable, and he had several periods of deep REM sleep, which is excellent for brain healing. Richard approached the bed, his businessman's demeanor softening as it always did in his son's presence. "Any signs of increased awareness?" Maya hesitated, not wanting to raise false hopes, but also feeling obligated to share her observations. "There are some small responses to auditory stimuli. His heart rate seems to respond to certain voices and sounds. It may not be significant medically, but I document everything just in case Dr. Chen finds patterns we're missing." "What kind of responses?" "Well, he seems to respond to music, particularly songs with strong rhythm. And—" Maya hesitated again, then decided to be completely honest. "He responds most strongly when I sing to him in Spanish. It could be the different vocal tones or the musical quality of the language." Richard was quiet for a moment, processing this information. Catherine used to sing to him when he was little. She had a beautiful voice. Maybe some part of him remembers being comforted by singing. Maya felt a pang of recognition, the way music could bridge the gap between consciousness and memory, between presence and absence. Music is one of the most primitive forms of communication. Even when other cognitive functions are impaired, people often respond to rhythm and melody. "Keep doing whatever you're doing," Richard said, glancing at his watch. "I have a board meeting this morning, but I should be home by 6 for dinner. I was planning to prepare arroz con pollo tonight, if that's acceptable." Tyler's nutritionist approved adding more variety to his tube feeding, and I thought the family might enjoy Puerto Rican food. Richard smiled, the first genuinely relaxed expression Maya had seen from him. "That sounds wonderful. It's been a long time since this house had home cooking." After Richard left for work, Maya continued Tyler's morning routine, reading him selections from the local newspaper, playing classical music that Dr. Chen had suggested might stimulate neural pathways, and talking to him about his room, his achievements displayed on the walls, the life he would return to when he recovered. Around mid-morning, Victoria appeared in Tyler's doorway. Unlike Richard, who had gradually grown comfortable with Maya's presence, Victoria continued to maintain a careful distance, observing Maya's interactions with Tyler like a detective gathering evidence. "Ms. Rodriguez," Victoria said formally, "I wondered if I might have a word with you." Maya finished adjusting Tyler's pillows and followed Victoria to the sitting area adjacent to Tyler's room. Victoria remained standing, her posture rigid with barely concealed tension. "I've been observing your care routines," Victoria began without preamble. "While I appreciate your enthusiasm, I'm concerned about certain aspects of your approach." Maya waited quietly, having learned that Victoria's concerns usually required careful navigation. The singing, for instance. "Tyler has never been exposed to Spanish music. I worry that introducing unfamiliar cultural elements might be confusing or distressing for him." Maya chose her words carefully. Mrs. Hamilton research shows that comatose patients often respond to novel auditory stimuli. The goal isn't to confuse Tyler, but to provide his brain with different types of input that might stimulate neural activity. Spanish lullabies have particular rhythmic and tonal qualities that can be soothing. Nevertheless, I think it would be more appropriate to focus on music Tyler would recognize, Classical pieces, perhaps some of the contemporary songs he enjoyed before the accident. Of course, I can incorporate those as well. The important thing is providing Tyler with varied sensory experiences. Victoria's expression suggested this wasn't the response she had hoped for, but she shifted tactics. There's another matter. I understand you've been cooking ethnic food for the household. Maya felt a familiar tightness in her chest, the sensation she had learned to recognize when her cultural background was being subtly criticized. Richard suggested I prepare meals for the family. I'm happy to cook whatever you prefer. It's not about preference, Ms. Rodriguez. It's about maintaining Tyler's familiar environment. When he wakes up, we want everything to be as normal as possible for him. I understand your concern, Maya replied, keeping her voice level. But Tyler has been unconscious for over 2 months. When he wakes up, many things will have changed. The goal is to create a warm, healing environment, not necessarily to pretend that time hasn't passed. Victoria's lips pursed slightly. I hope you understand that our primary concern is Tyler's well-being, not accommodating the cultural preferences of household staff. The words stung, though Maya suspected Victoria had intended them to. Tyler's well-being is my primary concern as well, Mrs. Hamilton. Everything I do is focused on his recovery. Victoria nodded curtly and departed, leaving Maya alone with the familiar feeling of having to defend her competence and motives. She had encountered similar attitudes at previous positions, the assumption that her warmth and cultural background somehow made her less professional, less capable of maintaining appropriate boundaries. Maya returned to Tyler's room, where the steady beeping of monitors provided a comforting rhythm. She settled back into the chair beside his bed, taking his hand gently, as she often did during their quiet moments together. Your grandmother loves you very much, she said softly. She's just worried about you, and sometimes worry makes people say things they don't really mean. She wants to protect you, which is what families are supposed to do. Maya began the afternoon physical therapy routine, moving Tyler's arms and legs through exercises designed to maintain muscle tone and circulation. As she worked, she talked about her own family, her mother Maria, who worked as a cook at a restaurant in Bridgeport, her younger sister Jessica, who taught elementary school in the Bronx. Jessica thinks I work too hard, Maya said, lifting Tyler's left arm in a gentle arc. She says I need to take better care of myself, maybe find someone special to share my life with. But right now, taking care of you feels like the most important thing I can do. That afternoon, Maya made her weekly trip to Whole Foods for Tyler's nutritional supplements and fresh ingredients for the family meals. The upscale grocery store in Westport was a far cry from the small markets she usually shopped in Bridgeport, and she was always conscious of being one of the few Latino faces among the predominantly white affluent clientele. She was selecting organic vegetables when she overheard a conversation between 2 well-dressed women near the pharmacy section. I heard Richard Hamilton hired some woman from Bridgeport to take care of Tyler. One woman said, her voice carrying the particular tone that suburban mothers used when they were sharing gossip disguised as concern. Margaret Thornfield told me she's some kind of immigrant, the second woman replied. Victoria is beside herself. Apparently the woman barely speaks English and has been filling the house with ethnic food and foreign music. Maya felt her face grow warm as she recognized the distorted version of her presence in the Hamilton household. She continued shopping, but couldn't help overhearing as the conversation continued. It's so sad about Tyler, but honestly, what was Richard thinking? Hiring someone like that to care for his son. Victoria says the woman claims to have nursing experience, but you know how those people exaggerate their credentials. Margaret says Tyler needs proper medical care, not some unlicensed home remedy nonsense. She's thinking of organizing the Garden Club women to speak with Richard about finding more appropriate help. Maya finished her shopping quickly, maintaining her dignity despite the anger burning in her chest. She had encountered prejudice before, but it never stopped hurting to hear her qualifications and motives questioned, based solely on her accent and appearance. On the drive back to the Hamilton estate, Maya called her sister Jessica on hands-free speaker. How's the Millionaire family treating you? Jessica asked with characteristic directness. It's complicated, Maya admitted. Tyler is making small improvements and Richard seems to appreciate my work. but his mother is challenging. And I'm getting the sense that the community has opinions about my presence here. What kind of opinions? Maya recounted the conversation she'd overheard at Whole Foods, feeling the familiar knot of frustration in her stomach. Maya, you don't have to put up with that garbage, Jessica said firmly. You're a licensed pediatric nurse with 8 years of ICU experience. You saved lives at Yale New Haven. Don't let some suburban gossips make you question your worth. I know you're right. It's just hard sometimes feeling like I have to prove myself constantly. Is the family paying you well? Are you safe? Is Tyler getting good care? Yes to all of those things. Then do your job, help that boy, and let the gossips gossip. You know who you are, Maya. Don't let them make you forget. After ending the call, Maya felt strengthened by her sister's words. She returned to the Hamilton house, determined to focus on what truly mattered: Tyler's recovery. That evening, Maya prepared arroz con pollo as planned, filling the kitchen with the aromas of sofrito and saffron. Richard arrived home to find the house smelling like a welcoming family dinner, rather than the usual neutral atmosphere of an institutional care facility. That smells incredible, he said, loosening his tie as he entered the kitchen where Maya was putting finishing touches on the meal. I hope you're hungry. I may have made too much food. Richard watched as Maya set the table for 3, including a place setting for Victoria. Will my mother be joining us? I invited her. Whether she chooses to come is up to her. Victoria appeared in the dining room just as Maya was serving the food, her expression carefully neutral. She took her seat without comment, sampling the arroz con pollo with the cautious demeanor of someone fulfilling an obligation rather than enjoying a meal. This is delicious, Richard said after several bites. What's in the seasoning? Maya explained the sofrito-based cilantro, garlic, onions, and peppers that form the foundation of Puerto Rican cooking. She talked about learning to cook from her mother, about the way food could carry culture and memory across generations. Carlos loved this dish, she said without thinking, then caught herself. She rarely mentioned her son in front of the Hamilton family. Carlos? Richard asked gently. My son. He died 2 years ago from leukemia. He was 8. Maya's voice was steady, though she felt Victoria's sharp attention focused on this revelation. Maya, I'm so sorry. I had no idea you'd lost a child. It's not something I usually discuss with employers, but Carlos loved to help me cook, especially this dish. He said it smelled like happiness. Victoria set down her fork, her expression softening slightly. I cannot imagine losing a grandchild, much less a child. That must have been devastating. It was, but it's also why I do this work now. I couldn't save Carlos, but maybe I can help other children heal. The dining room was quiet for a moment. The only sounds, the gentle clinking of silverware and the distant hum of Tyler's medical equipment from down the hall. You mentioned Tyler seems to respond to your singing, Richard said, steering the conversation towards safer ground. Have you noticed any other changes? Maya described the small improvements. She'd documented slightly stronger reflexes, more consistent sleep patterns, subtle facial expressions that might indicate dreams or subconscious processing. Dr. Chen says these could all be natural healing progression, Maya explained. But I think Tyler is aware on some level. Sometimes when I'm talking to him about college or about his friends, his heart rate increases as if he's trying to listen. Victoria looked up from her meal. You talk to him about personal things. I talk to him about his life, his interests, his future plans. Comatose patients often report later that they could hear conversations around them. I want Tyler to know that people believe in his recovery, that his life is waiting for him when he's ready to come back. After dinner, Maya excused herself to check on Tyler's evening care routine. She found him as she had left him, peaceful but unresponsive, surrounded by the soft beeping of machines that monitored every aspect of his body's healing process. Buenas noches, Tyler, she said softly, beginning her usual evening ritual of adjusting his position and checking his comfort. Your father and grandmother had dinner together tonight. I think your grandmother is starting to understand that I'm here to help you, not to change everything about your life. As Maya settled into the nighttime monitoring routine, she began humming the same Spanish lullaby that had seemed to calm Tyler that morning. She noticed his heart rate increase slightly, the same subtle response she had observed before. "I know you can hear me, mi amor," she whispered, using the endearment that felt natural despite their short acquaintance. "Keep fighting to come back to us. Your family needs you and I—" She caught herself before saying something unprofessional. "I believe in you." Maya opened her care journal and began writing her daily observations, documenting Tyler's vital signs, his responses to various stimuli, her growing sense that beneath the stillness, Tyler Hamilton was fighting his way back to consciousness. She was so absorbed in her writing that she didn't notice Victoria standing in the doorway, listening to the gentle Spanish words Maya murmured as she worked, trying to decipher whether the foreign language represented comfort or something more concerning for her grandson. On the morning Maya found Tyler's detailed care journals mysteriously relocated and Richard avoiding eye contact over coffee, she realized that the whispers in Westport had finally reached the Hamilton breakfast table. The late October air carried the first sharp bite of winter as Maya discovered her carefully maintained medical records had been moved from Tyler's bedside table to a filing cabinet in Richard's home office. She had spent weeks documenting every subtle change in Tyler's condition, fluctuations in heart rate during different types of music, slight variations in muscle tension during physical therapy, the barely perceptible eye movements that might indicate REM sleep patterns. Maya knocked gently on the office door, where Richard sat surrounded by architectural blueprints and financial reports. The Meridian Point development project had been consuming his attention for months, and the stress was evident in the new lines around his eyes. "Mr. Hamilton, I wanted to ask about Tyler's care journals. I couldn't find them in his room this morning." Richard looked up from his papers, his expression carefully neutral. "I had Brad Sullivan, our family attorney, review all of Tyler's medical documentation. He suggested we centralize the records for insurance purposes." Maya felt a chill that had nothing to do with the autumn weather. "I see. Will I still have access to add my daily observations? I've been tracking patterns that might be important for Dr. Chen's evaluations." "Of course," Richard said, but his tone lacked the warmth that had developed over the past month. Perhaps we should discuss maintaining appropriate professional boundaries in your documentation." The phrase professional boundaries landed like a stone in Maya's stomach. She had heard it before at other positions, usually as a prelude to criticism about becoming too emotionally invested in patient care. "Have I done something to concern you?" Maya asked directly. Richard shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "Not concern exactly, but my mother and some of our advisors have suggested that Tyler's care might benefit from a more clinical approach. Less personal attachment, more standardized protocols." Maya understood immediately. Victoria had been building a case against her methods, and the community pressure Richard faced as a prominent Westport resident was influencing his judgment. "I understand," Maya said quietly. "I'll adjust my approach accordingly." As Maya returned to Tyler's room, she found Victoria waiting with a distinguished-looking man in his mid-50s carrying a medical bag. "Ms. Rodriguez, this is Dr. Martinez," Victoria announced. "He's a consulting neurologist. I've asked to provide a second opinion on Tyler's care." Dr. Martinez extended a perfunctory handshake, his demeanor suggesting he had already formed opinions about Maya's qualifications. "Ms. Rodriguez, I understand you've been Tyler's primary caregiver." "Yes, sir, for the past month. And your medical training consists of—" Maya felt the familiar need to defend credentials that had never been questioned at Yale New Haven. 8 years as a pediatric ICU nurse, specialized training in neurological recovery protocols, certification in brain injury rehabilitation techniques. Dr. Martinez nodded dismissively. "I see. Well, I'd like to conduct my own assessment without outside influence. Perhaps you could give us some privacy." Maya recognized the dismissal for what it was, a clear message that her observations and insights were unwelcome. She retreated to the kitchen where she could hear the murmur of voices from Tyler's room, but couldn't distinguish the words. An hour later, Dr. Martinez emerged with Victoria, their conversation continuing as they passed through the kitchen. "The young man's condition appears stable but unchanged," Dr. Martinez was saying. These supposed responses to music and vocalization that the caregiver described are likely wishful thinking rather than meaningful neurological activity. So you don't believe Tyler is showing signs of increased awareness? Victoria asked. Mrs. Hamilton families often interpret normal physiological fluctuations as evidence of consciousness. It's a natural response to hope, but it can lead to unrealistic expectations and inappropriate care decisions. Maya remained quiet at the kitchen sink, but her hands trembled slightly as she washed dishes that were already clean. What would you recommend for Tyler's continued care? Victoria continued. A more structured, medically supervised approach? Perhaps transition to a specialized long-term care facility where he can receive appropriate neurological monitoring without the emotional complications that sometimes arise in home care situations. After Dr. Martinez departed, Victoria approached Maya in the kitchen. Her expression was not unkind, but it carried the weight of decisions already made. Ms. Suzu Rodriguez, Dr. Martinez has raised some valid concerns about Tyler's care protocol. I think it might be best if we simplified your responsibilities to basic medical maintenance rather than the more creative approaches you've been using. Maya set down the dish towel and faced Victoria directly. Mrs. Hamilton, may I ask what specifically concerns you about Tyler's current care? It's not about concern, dear. It's about maintaining appropriate professional standards. The singing, the personal conversations, the emotional investment, these things might be hindering Tyler's recovery rather than helping. With respect, Mrs. Hamilton, there's significant research supporting multisensory stimulation for comatose patients. Tyler's vital signs have shown consistent positive responses to auditory input, particularly music with strong rhythmic patterns. Victoria's expression hardened slightly. Ms. Rodriguez, I appreciate your enthusiasm, but Dr. Martinez is a respected neurologist with decades of experience. I think we should defer to his medical expertise rather than relying on the observations of household staff. The phrase household staff struck Maya like a physical blow. In one sentence, Victoria had reduced 8 years of specialized medical training to the status of domestic help. I understand, Maya said, her voice steady despite the anger building in her chest. I'll focus on basic care requirements. That afternoon brought an even more troubling development. Maya returned from her weekly grocery shopping to find Brad Sullivan, the Hamilton family attorney, waiting in the living room with a manila folder of documents. Ms. Rodriguez, I wonder if we might have a brief conversation about your employment arrangement here. Maya sat across from Brad, noting the way he positioned himself like a prosecutor preparing to cross-examine a hostile witness. I've been reviewing the terms of your employment, and I have some questions about your background. Brad began opening the folder to reveal what appeared to be copies of official documents. Your nursing license, your previous employment records, your immigration status. Maya felt her heart rate increase. Is there a problem with my documentation? Not a problem exactly, but I want to ensure that the Hamilton family is fully protected from any potential liability issues. If Tyler's condition were to deteriorate, or if there were questions about the quality of care he received, we need to be certain that his caregiver was properly qualified and legally authorized to provide medical services. The subtext was clear. Brad was building a legal case for Maya's potential dismissal, while protecting the Hamilton family from any accusations of negligent care. My licenses and credentials are all current and valid, Maya said firmly. I can provide additional documentation if necessary. That would be helpful. Also, I'd like to review your personal financial situation to ensure there are no conflicts of interest that might affect your professional judgment regarding Tyler's care. Maya stared at Brad in disbelief. Are you questioning whether I'm taking this position for financial gain rather than genuine concern for Tyler's well-being? I'm simply conducting due diligence to protect my client's interests. Surely you understand that wealthy families sometimes attract individuals with ulterior motives. The accusation hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Maya had faced subtle prejudice before, but rarely such direct suspicion of her character and motives. Mr. Sullivan, I took this position because I believe in Tyler's potential for recovery, and I have the medical expertise to help him achieve it. If the Hamilton family questions my integrity or qualifications, perhaps they should find a caregiver they can trust. Brad's expression suggested that might indeed be the outcome he was working toward. That evening, Maya was preparing Tyler's evening medications when Richard appeared in the doorway. His appearance was disheveled. His tie loosened his hair, showing signs of having been repeatedly pushed back with frustrated fingers. "Maya, we need to talk." They sat in the small sitting area adjacent to Tyler's room, where the sound of monitors provided a constant reminder of what was at stake. "I've been getting pressure from several directions about Tyler's care," Richard began without preamble. "My mother, our attorney, some members of our community. There are questions about whether home care is the best option for Tyler at this stage." Maya felt the bottom drop out of her stomach. "Are you asking me to leave?" "I'm asking you to help me understand whether what we're doing here is really in Tyler's best interest. The doctors say his condition hasn't changed significantly since you arrived. Maybe it's time to consider more intensive medical intervention." Maya looked toward Tyler's room, where she could see his still form beneath the white hospital blankets. In the past month, she had come to know every aspect of his condition, the way his breathing changed during different sleep cycles, the slight variations in muscle tone that might indicate neurological activity, the subtle responses that medical equipment couldn't measure. "Richard," she said, using his first name for the first time. "Tyler is fighting to come back. I know you can't see it on the medical charts, but he's responding to stimulation, to conversation, to music. His brain is healing. But Dr. Martinez says..." "Dr. Martinez spent 1 hour with Tyler. I've spent every day for a month learning his patterns, his responses, his needs. I know that sounds presumptuous, but I've seen recoveries that the medical establishment didn't expect." Richard was quiet for a long moment, studying Maya's face, as if trying to read the truth in her expression. "The insurance company is questioning the cost of extended home care," he said finally. "They're suggesting that Tyler would receive better monitoring in a specialized facility." Maya felt a familiar panic rising in her chest, the same helplessness she had experienced when insurance companies had questioned Carlos's treatment options. "Richard, please don't let them move Tyler to a facility. Not yet. Give me more time to help him." "How much time, Maya? How long do we wait for improvements that might never come?" Before Maya could answer, an alarm began beeping from Tyler's room. Maya was on her feet, immediately rushing to his bedside, where his monitors showed an irregular heartbeat and elevated blood pressure. Tyler's body was rigid with what appeared to be a seizure, his arms and legs trembling against the restraints that prevented him from injuring himself. Maya's training took over, instantly checking his airway timing, the seizure duration, adjusting his position to prevent aspiration. "Call 911, she called to Richard, who stood frozen in the doorway, "and get Dr. Chen on the phone." Maya's hands moved with practiced precision, administering the emergency medication that Dr. Chen had prescribed for exactly this situation. She spoke calmly to Tyler throughout the episode, her voice steady and reassuring despite the crisis. "It's okay, Tyler. I'm here with you. This will pass. Just breathe with me." The seizure lasted less than 2 minutes, but it felt like hours. As Tyler's body gradually relaxed and his vital signs stabilized, Maya continued monitoring his condition while paramedics arrived and transferred him back to Stamford Hospital. In the ambulance, Maya held Tyler's hand and provided the detailed medical history that the EMTs needed. She rattled off medication dosages, recent vital sign patterns, the exact sequence of events leading to the seizure. Her competence under pressure was evident to everyone in the ambulance. At the hospital, Dr. Chen met them. In the emergency department, her expression grave, but grateful for Maya's quick response. "How long from onset to medication administration?" Dr. Chen asked. "Less than 30 seconds, Maya replied. "I was monitoring him when the seizure began." "You may have prevented serious brain damage," Dr. Chen said quietly. "Prolonged seizures can be devastating for patients with existing brain injuries." Richard, who had followed the ambulance to the hospital, watched as Maya provided detailed information to the medical team about Tyler's condition over the past month. Her observations, which Dr. Martinez had dismissed as wishful thinking, proved invaluable for understanding Tyler's neurological status. Dr. Chen, Richard said as they waited in the family conference room. Maya has been documenting responses to music and vocal stimulation that other doctors say aren't medically significant. What's your opinion? Dr. Chen glanced at Maya, then back at Richard. Maya's observations have been consistently accurate and medically relevant. The patterns she's documented suggest that Tyler's brain is processing auditory information, which is actually a positive sign for eventual recovery. But Dr. Martinez saw Tyler for 1 hour. Maya has been with him every day for a month. In neurological recovery, consistent observation often reveals patterns that brief consultations miss. As they prepared to transport Tyler back home after stabilizing his condition, Richard pulled Maya aside in the hospital corridor. "I owe you an apology," he said quietly, "and Tyler owes you his life. If you hadn't been there tonight, if you hadn't responded so quickly." Maya felt tears threatening for the first time all evening. "I promised I would take care of him, Richard. That's all I've ever wanted to do. I know that now, and I'm sorry I let other people make me doubt your dedication." "Does this mean Tyler can stay home?" Richard nodded. "It means Tyler stays home and you stay with him. Anyone who has a problem with that can deal with me directly." As they returned to the Hamilton estate in the early hours of morning, Maya settled back into her vigil beside Tyler's bed. His condition was stable, but the seizure had been a reminder of how fragile his recovery remained. "You scared us tonight, mi amor," she whispered, taking his hand gently. "But you're going to be okay. I won't let anything happen to you." Maya opened her care journal and began documenting the night's events, noting Tyler's response times, medication, effectiveness, and recovery patterns. As she wrote, she noticed Tyler's hand move slightly in hers, not a reflexive twitch, but what appeared to be an intentional squeeze of her fingers, though she was the only witness to this potential breakthrough moment. When Tyler Hamilton's eyes opened for the first time in 10 weeks, and his first whispered words were, "That's the song, from my dreams," Maya Rodriguez realized that everything she had endured was about to be worth it. The Spanish lullabies that had carried Maya through Carlos's final nights had somehow reached Tyler in his silent world, creating a bond that would soon silence every critic and doubter in Westport, though the real test of their connection was just beginning. It was 3 days after Tyler's seizure, and Maya had maintained an almost constant vigil beside his bed. Dr. Chen had warned that the neurological trauma from the seizure might actually stimulate brain activity, but she cautioned against expecting immediate results. Maya, however, had noticed subtle changes that the medical equipment couldn't measure, a different quality to Tyler's breathing, slight variations in his facial expressions, the way his fingers seemed to respond when she spoke to him. Maya was humming "Duérmete mi niño" while adjusting Tyler's pillows on this particular November morning, when she noticed his eyelids fluttering with more purpose than the random movement she had observed over the past weeks. She paused in her work, watching carefully as Tyler's eyes moved beneath closed lids, as if he were struggling to surface from deep water. "Tyler," she said softly, leaning closer to his face, "can you hear me, mi amor?" For a moment nothing happened. Then, with what seemed like tremendous effort, Tyler's eyelids opened slowly. His brown eyes, unfocused and confused, searched the room before finally settling on Maya's face. Recognition flickered there, followed by something that looked like relief. "That's the song," Tyler whispered, his voice barely audible after months of silence. "From my dreams." Maya felt her knees nearly buckle as emotions flooded through her, joy, relief, vindication, and an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She reached for the call button to summon Dr. Chen, but Tyler's weak hand moved to catch her wrist. Don't leave." He managed, his words slurred but unmistakably intentional. "I'm not going anywhere, Tyler. I'm just calling the doctor. You've been asleep for a very long time." Tyler's eyes tracked her movements as she pressed the call button, then returned to study her face with the intense focus of someone trying to piece together fragmented memories. "You're Maya," he said slowly. "You told me about Carlos." Maya's breath caught in her throat. Tyler's ability to recall details from his coma period was remarkable, and his first conscious thoughts had turned to her son's memory. Yes, I told you about Carlos. Do you remember other things? Tyler's forehead creased with concentration. You sang to me. Spanish songs. You said I was going to be okay. Dr. Chen arrived within minutes, followed closely by Richard, who had been in his home office when the nurse called. Richard stopped in the doorway when he saw Tyler's open eyes, his hand gripping the doorframe, as if he needed physical support. Tyler! Richard's voice broke on his son's name. Tyler turned his head slowly toward his father, a smile ghosting across his pale features. Hi, Dad. Richard crossed the room in 3 quick steps, leaning down to embrace his son gently. Maya watched the reunion with tears streaming down her face, stepping back to give them privacy, while Dr. Chen began her neurological assessment. Tyler, I'm Dr. Chen. Can you tell me your full name? Tyler. Richard Hamilton. I'm 16. I live in Westport, Connecticut. His voice grew stronger with each answer. Do you remember what happened to you? Tyler's expression grew troubled. Car accident. I was driving Jake and Connor home from a party. Is everyone okay? Did I hurt anyone? Richard and Dr. Chen exchanged glances. Tyler's memory of events leading up to the accident was remarkably clear, which was an excellent sign for his cognitive recovery. Everyone else was fine, son. You took the worst of the impact, Richard said gently. Tyler's eyes found Maya again standing quietly near the window. Maya stayed with me. Even when I couldn't answer, she kept talking to me. She told me about her little boy who went to heaven. Maya approached the bed slowly, still hardly believing that Tyler was awake and lucid. How much do you remember? Pieces. Your voice mostly. You read me news articles and talked about college applications. You said Carlos would want me to get better. Dr. Chen completed her initial assessment with obvious amazement. Tyler's cognitive function appeared remarkably intact for someone emerging from a 10-week coma. His speech, while initially slow, was becoming clearer with each exchange, and his memory retention was extraordinary. Tyler, this is remarkable progress, Dr. Chen said. We'll need to do more comprehensive testing, but your initial responses suggest minimal cognitive damage from the brain injury. When can I go home? Tyler asked, looking around the medical equipment in his room. You are home, son, Richard said with a smile. Maya has been taking care of you here. We converted your room into a medical facility. Tyler's gaze moved between his father and Maya, processing this information. Maya lives here now. She's been your caregiver since September, Richard explained. She's the one who saved your life when you had a seizure 3 days ago. Tyler's attention focused entirely on Maya. You saved me. Maya felt uncomfortable with the credit, but Dr. Chen nodded approvingly. Maya's quick response and medical training prevented serious complications from your seizure. You're very fortunate to have had such dedicated care. I want to thank her properly, Tyler said, struggling to sit up straighter in bed. Maya, I don't know how to... I heard you singing to me when everything was dark. You were like a light guiding me back. Maya had to step away from the bed as emotion overwhelmed her. In Tyler's simple words, she heard validation for every moment of doubt she had experienced, every criticism about her methods, every question about her motivations. You don't need to thank me, Tyler. Helping you heal it's helped me heal too. Over the next several hours, as word of Tyler's awakening spread through the Hamilton household and beyond, Maya witnessed a remarkable transformation in the way others viewed her presence in the family. Victoria, who arrived breathless with excitement, watched in amazement as Tyler asked specifically for Maya when she stepped out of the room briefly. Where did Maya go? Tyler asked with obvious anxiety when he noticed her absence. She's just getting you some water, sweetheart, Victoria said. But Tyler's distress was evident until Maya returned. I was afraid you had left, Tyler said, visibly relaxing when Maya resumed her place beside his bed. I promised I wouldn't leave you, and I keep my promises, Maya said gently. By afternoon, Tyler was strong enough to sit up and take small sips of water. His appetite was returning, and he asked specifically for some of the Puerto Rican rice dish Maya had prepared for the family weeks earlier. You remember the arroz con pollo? Maya asked with surprise. I could smell it cooking. It smelled like like happiness, like home should smell. Victoria, who had criticized Maya's ethnic cooking just weeks before, watched this exchange with obvious discomfort at her previous prejudices. As the day progressed, Tyler began sharing more detailed memories from his coma period. He described Maya's daily routines with startling accuracy, recalled specific conversations she had with his father about business matters, and remembered the story she had told him about growing up in Puerto Rico. "You told me about the beach where you and Carlos used to look for seashells," Tyler said during one of their conversations. "You said he wanted to build a castle big enough for both of you to live in." Maya nodded, amazed that Tyler had absorbed and retained such personal details. He was always building things, even at the hospital. He'd make towers out of his medicine cups and pretend they were castles where sick children went to get better. "He sounds like he was special." "He was, and I think he would have liked you very much." Tyler was quiet for a moment, then said something that surprised everyone in the room. "I felt him sometimes, when you were singing, when you were sad. Like he was helping you take care of me." Maya felt a chill run down her spine. Tyler's words echoed her own private sense that Carlos's spirit had somehow guided her to this family, to this opportunity to channel her maternal love toward healing rather than helpless grief. Dr. Chen returned that evening for a more comprehensive evaluation, bringing along Dr. Foster, a speech therapist who specialized in brain injury recovery. Tyler's responses to their tests were consistently above expectations for someone at his stage of recovery. "Tyler's linguistic processing is remarkable," Dr. Foster observed. "He's responding to complex verbal instructions and demonstrating excellent memory retention. The fact that he recalls specific details from his coma period suggests that consistent auditory stimulation played a significant role in his recovery." Dr. Chen glanced at Maya with obvious respect. Maya's approach to Tyler's care appears to have been optimal for his particular recovery needs. The combination of medical competence and emotional engagement created an environment that supported neurological healing. Word of Tyler's awakening spread quickly through Westport's social networks. By evening, the Hamilton house had received dozens of calls and flower arrangements from community members eager to celebrate the miraculous recovery. Maya noticed, however, that the same people who had gossiped about her presence in the household now seemed eager to share in the joy of Tyler's recovery without acknowledging their previous skepticism. Richard pulled Maya aside as they prepared Tyler for his first night of natural sleep since the accident. "Maya, I need you to know how grateful I am. Not just for Tyler's medical care, but for believing in his recovery when everyone else was preparing for the worst. Tyler did the hard work of healing Richard. I just provided support. It was more than support. You gave him a reason to fight his way back. He talks about you the way—" Richard paused, searching for the right words. "The way he used to talk about his mother. You've become family to him." Maya felt tears threatening again. "He's become family to me, too." As Maya settled into her evening routine, she found Tyler still awake, his eyes bright and alert despite his exhaustion. "Maya, can I ask you something?" "Of course. When I was away, I heard you talking to someone named Carlos. You said you were sorry you couldn't save him." Maya nodded, her throat tight with emotion. "I think you did save him," Tyler said quietly. "Maybe not his body, but his love, his spirit. You brought that love to me when I needed it most. So maybe you did save Carlos in a way." Maya had to leave the room to compose herself. Tyler's words providing a healing balm to wounds she had carried for 2 years. When she returned, Tyler was fighting sleep, clearly afraid to close his eyes. "Will you sing to me?" he asked. "The Spanish song that helped me find my way back?" Maya settled into the chair beside his bed and began humming "Duérmete, mi niño," watching as Tyler's eyes grew heavy with natural healing sleep. For the first time since Carlos's death, Maya felt that her maternal love had successfully protected someone, that her devotion had resulted in life rather than loss. As Tyler drifted off, he murmured sleepily, "Thank you for not giving up on me, Maya. Thank you for loving me like your own." Maya continued humming until Tyler's breathing settled into the deep, restorative rhythm of natural sleep, then opened her care journal to document the most important entry she had ever written. Tyler Hamilton returned to consciousness today, demonstrating remarkable cognitive function and emotional awareness. Patient's first words referenced caregiver's Spanish lullabies and expressed clear recognition of care relationship. Recovery exceeds all medical expectations. As she prepared for her own rest, Maya whispered a prayer of gratitude to Carlos's memory, feeling for the first time that his death had not been meaningless, that his love lived on through her ability to heal another child, though she had no idea that her greatest challenges were still ahead. The Connecticut Department of Children and Families investigator arrived at 9 a.m. sharp, but 16-year-old Tyler Hamilton had been preparing his defense of Maya Rodriguez since 6 a.m., and he wasn't planning to let anyone separate him from the woman who had saved his life. Just as Maya had fought insurance companies and medical bureaucracy for Carlos's care, Tyler was now ready to fight the system for Maya's right to remain his caregiver, though neither realized this battle would ultimately free them both from others' expectations. Linda Morrison stepped out of her state-issued sedan with the efficient movements of someone who had conducted hundreds of family welfare investigations. At 45, she had seen every variation of family dysfunction, manipulation, and genuine care that Connecticut's households could produce. This case, however, had already caught her attention. Complaints about a Hispanic caregiver allegedly manipulating a wealthy teenager had been filed by multiple community members, suggesting either legitimate concerns or coordinated prejudice. Tyler watched from his bedroom window as the investigator approached the Hamilton estate, his newly awakened mind sharp with determination. In the weeks since emerging from his coma, he had learned about the community's campaign against Maya, the whispered accusations about her motives, the attempts to remove her from his care. The knowledge had ignited a protective fury in Tyler that surprised everyone, including himself. "Maya," Tyler called as she entered his room with his morning medications. "The lady from the state is here. I need you to know that whatever they ask me, I'm going to tell them the truth about everything you did for me." Maya set down the medication tray, her expression troubled. "Tyler, you don't need to defend me. I can handle whatever questions they have." "But I want to defend you," Tyler said firmly. "You defended me when I couldn't defend myself. Now it's my turn." Richard met Linda Morrison in the formal dining room, where Victoria sat rigidly at one end of the mahogany table, and Maya waited with quiet dignity near the window. The contrast between the family's obvious wealth and Maya's modest appearance was not lost on the investigator, who had learned to read family dynamics quickly. "Mr. Hamilton, I'm Linda Morrison from DCF. I'm here to investigate allegations that your son's caregiver may have established an inappropriate emotional relationship with Tyler that could be detrimental to his well-being." Richard's jaw tightened. "Ms. Morrison, I want to be clear from the start that Maya Rodriguez saved my son's life. Any allegations against her are unfounded and frankly seem motivated by community prejudice rather than legitimate concern." Linda made notes without comment, then turned to Victoria. "Mrs. Hamilton, I understand you've had concerns about Ms. Rodriguez's care methods." Victoria shifted uncomfortably, clearly aware that her previous criticisms now seemed petty in light of Tyler's remarkable recovery. I was concerned about professional boundaries. Maya became very emotionally invested in Tyler's care, which seemed inappropriate at the time. And now, Victoria glanced at Maya, something like guilt flickering across her features. "Now I realize that emotional investment may have been exactly what Tyler needed." Linda interviewed Maya extensively about her background training and care philosophy. Maya answered each question with professional composure, providing documentation of her nursing credentials, references from Yale New Haven Hospital, and detailed care logs that demonstrated her competent medical management of Tyler's condition. "Ms. Rodriguez, several community members have suggested that you may have financial motivations for maintaining this position. How do you respond to that?" Maya met Linda's gaze directly. "Ms. Morrison, I could earn more money working in a hospital ICU with full benefits and regular hours. I took this position because Tyler needed specialized care that I was qualified to provide. My son died from leukemia 2 years ago, and helping Tyler recover has been part of my own healing process." Linda made detailed notes about Maya's background, including her immigration from Puerto Rico, her education and training, and the circumstances that led her to private care work. Nothing in Maya's history suggested anything other than professional competence and personal integrity. "I'd like to speak with Tyler now," Linda announced. Tyler had been waiting in the living room, dressed in the button-down shirt and khakis that made him look older than his 16 years. Despite his recent emergence from a coma, his posture was straight and his expression determined. "Tyler, I'm Ms. Morrison. I'm here to make sure you're receiving appropriate care and that your best interests are being protected." "My best interests are being protected," Tyler said immediately, "by Maya. She's the reason I'm alive and recovering." Linda studied Tyler's face, noting his alertness and the maturity that trauma sometimes forced upon young people. "Can you tell me about your relationship with Ms. Rodriguez?" Tyler took a deep breath, organizing his thoughts with the care of someone who understood the importance of this conversation. "Ms. Morrison, I was in a coma for 10 weeks. During that time, Maya took care of me like I was her own son. She talked to me every day, sang to me, read to me, told me stories about her life and her little boy who died. She never missed a day, never gave up hope that I would wake up." "How do you know this if you were unconscious?" "Because I could hear her. I could feel her taking care of me. When I was lost in the darkness, her voice was like a light showing me the way back." Tyler's voice grew stronger as he continued. "Maya told me about Carlos, her son, who died from leukemia. She said she couldn't save him, but maybe she could help save me. And she did save me." Linda leaned forward slightly. "Tyler, some people are concerned that Miss Rodriguez may have influenced you to feel grateful to her in ways that aren't healthy. Do you think that's possible?" Tyler's expression hardened. "Ms. Morrison Maya never asked me to be grateful. She never talked about herself or what she needed. Every conversation was about helping me get better about my future, about the people who love me. The only time she mentioned her own pain was to help me understand that healing was possible, even after terrible loss." "Can you give me specific examples of her care?" Tyler described Maya's daily routines with remarkable detail. The way she monitored his vital signs, administered medications, performed physical therapy exercises, and maintained his dignity during personal care. He recounted specific conversations she had with his father about business matters, her interactions with medical staff, and her professional handling of his seizure emergency. "When I had the seizure, Maya saved my life," Tyler said firmly. "Dr. Chen said that if Maya hadn't responded so quickly with the right medication, I could have suffered permanent brain damage. Does that sound like someone who is manipulating me for personal gain?" Linda had interviewed hundreds of teenagers, and Tyler's articulate defense of Maya was unlike anything she had encountered. His responses showed no signs of coaching or manipulation. Instead, they demonstrated genuine gratitude and mature understanding of the care he had received. "Tyler, is there anything about Ms. Rodriguez's care that concerns you or makes you uncomfortable?" "The only thing that concerns me is that people are trying to take her away from me," Tyler replied. "Maya is the most honest, caring person I've ever met. She treats me with respect, pushes me to work hard in physical therapy, and never lets me feel sorry for myself. She's helping me become stronger, not making me dependent on her." Dr. Chen arrived that afternoon to provide medical testimony about Tyler's recovery. Her assessment was unequivocal in its support of Maya's care methods. "Ms. Morrison, Tyler's recovery has exceeded every medical expectation we had," Dr. Chen explained. "Patients with his level of brain trauma typically require months of rehabilitation to achieve basic cognitive function. Tyler emerged from his coma with remarkable mental clarity and has continued to make exceptional progress." "What factors contributed to this recovery?" "Multiple factors, but I believe the consistent emotionally supportive care provided by Ms. Rodriguez played a crucial role. She maintained detailed medical documentation, followed all protocols precisely, and provided the kind of psychological support that medical research shows can significantly impact neurological recovery." Linda also interviewed Eleanor Watson, the Hamiltons' neighbor, who had observed Maya's dedication during Tyler's coma period. Eleanor's testimony provided an outside perspective on Maya's character and professionalism. I watched that young woman walk past my house every morning at 6 a.m. to check on Tyler, Eleanor said. Rain or shine, she was there. I saw her grocery shopping, always reading labels carefully, buying the healthiest foods for Tyler's recovery. She never gossiped about the family, never complained about the long hours. She carried herself with dignity, even when people in this community were saying terrible things about her. Pastor James Mitchell provided character references for Maya, describing her involvement in the Hispanic community and her reputation for integrity and compassion. Even Margaret Thornfield, Victoria's friend, who had been among Maya's most vocal critics, reluctantly admitted that Tyler's recovery spoke for itself. I may have misjudged Ms. Rodriguez, Margaret said stiffly. Tyler's improvement since she began caring for him is undeniable. The most powerful testimony came from Maya's sister Jessica, who drove up from New York City to provide family perspective on Maya's character and motivations. Ms. Morrison, my sister Maya is the strongest person I know, Jessica said. When Carlos died, I watched her nearly break from grief. But instead of giving up, she channeled that love into helping other children. She doesn't need the Hamilton family's money. She needs to feel that her maternal love can still heal instead of just remember loss. Linda conducted her final interview with Maya alone, away from family influences and community pressure. Ms. Rodriguez, why is this position so important to you? Maya was quiet for a moment, gathering her thoughts. Ms. Morrison, when Carlos was dying, I felt helpless despite all my medical training. I couldn't save my own child. Working with Tyler has allowed me to use my skills and my love to actually help a child recover. It's given meaning to Carlos's death and purpose to my life. What would you want for Tyler's future? I want him to go to college to pursue his dreams of environmental science, to have a full, healthy life surrounded by people who love him. I want him to remember this difficult time as the period when he learned how strong he really is, not as something that defined or limited him. Linda reviewed her notes from the day-long investigation, finding no evidence of manipulation, inappropriate boundaries, or financial motivation in Maya's care relationship with Tyler. Instead, she had documented a case study in optimal caregiving that combined professional competence with genuine emotional support. That evening, Linda called the Hamilton family together for her preliminary findings. Based on my investigation, I find no evidence of inappropriate conduct or harmful influence by Ms. Rodriguez. Tyler is receiving excellent medical care combined with emotional support that appears to have facilitated his remarkable recovery. My recommendation will be that the current care arrangement should continue. Tyler's relief was visible, but Linda continued with additional recommendations. However, I do suggest formalizing the arrangement through proper legal channels. Mr. Hamilton, you might consider establishing Ms. Rodriguez as Tyler's official medical guardian, which would give her legal authority to make care decisions and protect her from future unfounded complaints. Richard nodded approvingly. We'll begin that process immediately. Victoria, who had remained quiet throughout the day, finally spoke. Ms. Morrison, I owe Maya an apology. I let my fears and my prejudices cloud my judgment about someone who was helping my grandson heal. Maya turned to Victoria with genuine surprise. Mrs. Hamilton, you were protecting Tyler. I understand that instinct. No, Maya. I was protecting my own sense of control over this family. You were protecting Tyler. As Linda Morrison prepared to leave, she pulled Maya aside for a private word. Ms. Rodriguez, I want you to know that I've rarely seen such clear evidence of genuine care and professional competence. Tyler is fortunate to have you, and I believe you're fortunate to have found a family that appreciates your dedication. That night, as Maya was helping Tyler with his evening physical therapy exercises, he brought up the day's events. Maya, are you glad they investigated you? Maya considered the question carefully. I'm glad that now everyone knows the truth about why I'm here and what I do for you. Sometimes clearing the air helps everyone move forward. I was scared they might make you leave. Tyler, even if they had tried to make me leave, I would have fought to stay. You're too important to me to give up without a fight. Tyler smiled, the expression transforming his face from serious to genuinely happy. Maya, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you think Carlos would be proud of what you've done for me? Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I think Carlos would be happy that his mama found a way to love and protect another child, and I think he would like you very much. As Maya settled Tyler for the night, she reflected on the day's events with deep satisfaction. The investigation that was meant to question her motives had instead validated her care methods and strengthened her position in Tyler's life. More importantly, it had forced the community to confront their own prejudices and acknowledge the value of her dedication. Tyler was nearly asleep when the doorbell rang unexpectedly. Maya heard Richard's voice in the hallway, followed by the sound of someone entering the house. A few minutes later, Richard appeared in Tyler's doorway, holding an envelope. Tyler, this came by special delivery. Richard said, his expression troubled. It's from your mother's family in California. Tyler sat up in bed, suddenly alert. He rarely heard from his maternal relatives, who had maintained distance from the Hamilton family since Catherine's death 5 years earlier. Maya watched as Tyler opened the envelope and read the contents, his expression growing increasingly confused and then angry. What is it, son? Richard asked. Tyler looked up from the letter, his face flushed with indignation. They want custody of me. Uncle David says he's been following news about my accident online, and he thinks you're not capable of making appropriate decisions about my care. He's petitioning for custody and wants me to come live in California. Just as the family celebrates their legal victory, Tyler receives a letter from his mother's family in California. Relatives he barely remembers who are now questioning his father's guardianship decisions and threatening their own custody challenge. On Thanksgiving morning, as Maya Rodriguez set the table for 12 guests in the house where she had once been viewed with suspicion, Tyler Hamilton prepared to make an announcement that would complete the transformation from employee to beloved family member. The same dining room where Victoria had once questioned Maya's motives was now filled with the aroma of traditional Puerto Rican pastels alongside New England turkey, symbolizing the cultural blending that had created their chosen family. The past 3 weeks had been a whirlwind of legal meetings, medical evaluations, and family conferences as Richard worked with attorneys to counter the custody challenge from Catherine's brother David in California. David Hamilton, a successful Silicon Valley executive, had filed papers claiming that Richard's judgment had been impaired by grief and that Tyler needed a more stable family environment, away from the inappropriate influences in Connecticut. Maya had offered multiple times to step away from Tyler's care to eliminate the ammunition David was using against Richard's parenting decisions. Each time Tyler had become so distressed that Dr. Chen recommended against any changes to his support system during this critical recovery period. Maya isn't the problem, Tyler had declared during one particularly heated family meeting. Uncle David is the problem. He barely knew Mom, and he's never even visited me. Now suddenly, he wants to be my guardian. Richard had spent considerable time and money building a legal defense that demonstrated Tyler's exceptional recovery under Maya's care, the strength of their father-son relationship, and the stability of their current family arrangement. Character witnesses lined up to testify on Richard's behalf, including Dr. Chen Pastor Mitchell, and even Margaret Thornfield, who had become one of Maya's most vocal supporters since Tyler's awakening. This Thanksgiving morning, however, the custody battle seemed distant as Maya moved through the Hamilton kitchen with practiced efficiency, preparing a feast that honored both her Puerto Rican heritage and New England traditions. She had been cooking since 5 a.m., her mother Maria having arrived from Bridgeport the night before to help with the elaborate meal. Mija, you have found a good family here, Maria said in Spanish as she helped Maya prepare the pasteles. Tyler looks at you the way Carlos used to look at you when you made his favorite foods. Maya paused in her work, touched by her mother's observation. Over the past months, Tyler had indeed begun to look at her with the comfortable affection of a child secure in his mother's love. Tyler appeared in his kitchen doorway, moving with the confident stride that had replaced his initial post-coma unsteadiness. His physical therapy had progressed remarkably, and Dr. Chen had cleared him for most normal activities. Maya, can I help with anything? he asked, already reaching for an apron. You can help your grandmother Maria arrange the pastelas in the serving dish, Maya replied, gesturing toward her mother. Tyler had taken to calling Maria abuela after learning that Spanish term for grandmother, and Maria had embraced the role with obvious delight. She had been teaching Tyler basic Spanish phrases, and he had been teaching her about his environmental science interests. Abuela, ¿cómo estás esta mañana? Tyler asked, his pronunciation improving with each conversation. Muy bien, mijo, Maria replied, beaming at Tyler's effort. Your Spanish gets better every day. Richard entered the kitchen, dressed in casual slacks and a sweater, looking more relaxed than he had in months. The legal challenges had been stressful, but they had also clarified what truly mattered to him, Tyler's happiness and recovery. What can I do to help? Richard asked, surveying the organized chaos of Thanksgiving preparation. You can stop worrying about Uncle David's lawyers, Tyler said firmly. Today is about family, and you're my family. Maya is my family. Even grandmother Victoria is finally acting like family. Victoria had indeed undergone a remarkable transformation since Tyler's awakening. Her initial suspicion of Maya had evolved into genuine respect and eventually something approaching maternal affection. She had been one of the strongest voices supporting Richard during the custody proceedings. The first guests arrived at noon. Eleanor Watson carrying her famous cranberry sauce, followed by Pastor Mitchell with his wife and teenage daughter. Dr. Chen arrived with her husband and 2 young children, whom Tyler immediately engaged in conversation about science projects. Tyler, you look wonderful, Dr. Chen said, observing his easy interaction with her children. Your cognitive recovery continues to exceed every expectation we had. Maya says that's because I have good reasons to get better, Tyler replied, glancing at Maya with obvious affection. As more guests arrived, Maya noticed the way community members who had once whispered about her presence now greeted her with genuine warmth. Margaret Thornfield arrived with a homemade apple pie and an apology that was several months overdue. Maya, I want you to know how sorry I am for the things I said about you, Margaret said quietly as she handed over the pie. I let my prejudices cloud my judgment about someone who is helping a child heal. Mrs. Thornfield, we all want to protect the children we love, Maya replied graciously. I understand that instinct. You're a better person than I am, Margaret said with obvious regret. Tyler is lucky to have you. As the guests settled around the expanded dining room table, Richard stood to offer the traditional blessing. But Tyler interrupted, rising from his chair with the confidence of someone who had important things to say. Dad, before you say grace, I have an announcement to make. The room fell quiet, all attention focused on Tyler. Maya felt a flutter of nervousness, uncertain what Tyler had planned. Over the past few months, I've learned a lot about family. Tyler began, his voice clear and strong. I learned that family isn't just about blood relationships or legal documents. Family is about the people who show up for you when you need them most, who believe in you when you can't believe in yourself, and who love you enough to fight for your recovery. Tyler's eyes found Maya across the table. Maya Rodriguez came into our lives when I was broken and unconscious. She could have treated me like just another patient, but instead she treated me like her own son. She sang to me, talked to me, fought for me, and never gave up believing that I would come back. Maya felt tears beginning to fall as Tyler continued his speech. Maya lost her own son, Carlos, 2 years ago. She could have let that loss make her bitter or closed off from loving again. Instead, she chose to honor Carlos's memory by channeling her maternal love toward helping me heal. Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded document. That's why I've asked Dad and our lawyers to begin formal adoption proceedings. I want Maya to legally become my mother, not just my caregiver. The room erupted in surprised murmurs and emotional responses. Maya stood frozen, hardly believing what she had heard. Tyler, she whispered, are you sure that's a huge decision? I've never been more sure of anything, Tyler replied. Maya, you saved my life in every way that matters. You gave me a reason to fight my way back from the darkness. You loved me when I couldn't love myself. If that's not what mothers do, I don't know what is. Richard stood and placed his hand on Tyler's shoulder. Son, you should know that I completely support this decision. Maya has become family to both of us, and it's time we made that official. Victoria rose from her chair, tears streaming down her face. Tyler, that's a beautiful sentiment, and Maya, I want you to know that I would be honored to welcome you as Tyler's mother and my daughter-in-law. Maya could barely speak through her emotions. Tyler, this is the greatest honor you could give me, but I want you to understand, adopting you doesn't mean replacing your mother Catherine's memory. It means adding my love to the love she already gave you. I know that, Tyler said, crossing to embrace Maya. Mom would have loved you, and I think Carlos would be proud to share his mama with me. As the family and friends around the table absorbed this announcement, Tyler pulled out another document from his pocket. There's something else, he said, his voice taking on a more formal tone. I've also been working with Dad to establish the Carlos Rodriguez Memorial Scholarship Fund for children fighting serious illnesses. Maya taught me that the best way to honor someone's memory is to help other people heal. Maya broke down completely at this revelation, overwhelmed by Tyler's thoughtfulness and generosity. The scholarship fund would ensure that Carlos's name lived on in a way that brought hope to other families facing medical crises. Maria Rodriguez stood and raised her glass of sparkling cider. To my new grandson Tyler, who has shown wisdom beyond his years in recognizing love when he finds it, Pastor Mitchell offered his own toast. To Maya and Tyler, who have shown us all that family is created by choice, commitment, and unconditional love. As the celebration continued around the table, Tyler pulled Maya aside for a private conversation in the kitchen. Maya, I need you to know something. When I was in the coma, I felt Carlos's presence sometimes, like he was guiding you to take care of me. I think he knew you needed a son to love, and I needed a mother to believe in me. Maya hugged Tyler tightly, feeling Carlos's spirit in this moment of healing and new beginnings. Tyler, you've given me back my purpose as a mother. You've helped me understand that love doesn't end with death, it just finds new ways to express itself. Does this mean you'll teach me to cook Carlos's favorite foods? Tyler asked with a smile. It means I'll teach you everything I know about love, healing, and honoring the people who shaped us, Maya replied. As the afternoon progressed, news of Tyler's adoption announcement spread through their social circles. Phone calls and text messages poured in with congratulations and support, including an unexpected call from David Hamilton in California. Richard, I want to withdraw my custody petition, David said when Richard answered the phone. I've been following the news coverage of Tyler's recovery, and I can see that he's exactly where he belongs. I'm sorry for putting you through this legal challenge. David, I appreciate that. Tyler would love to maintain a relationship with you as his uncle, but he's made it clear that Connecticut is his home. That evening, as the last guest departed and the kitchen was cleaned, Maya found Tyler in his room working on college applications that had been postponed during his medical crisis. How does it feel to be applying to colleges again? Maya asked, settling into the chair that had become her usual spot during their evening conversations. It feels hopeful, Tyler replied. Before the accident, I was applying to colleges because it was expected. Now I'm applying because I have something important to contribute to the world. What do you want to contribute? Tyler looked up from his laptop, his expression serious and determined. I want to study environmental science so I can help protect the natural world that gave me strength during my recovery. And I want to work with families dealing with brain injuries, maybe help establish more scholarship programs like the one we're creating for Carlos. Maya felt a surge of pride at Tyler's mature goals and his desire to transform his trauma into service to others. Tyler, what made you think about adoption? That's a big step. Tyler was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Maya, when I was unconscious, I wasn't just floating in darkness. I was fighting to find my way back to the people who loved me. Your voice was like a rope that I could follow back to consciousness, but it wasn't just your medical care that saved me. It was the love behind it. He paused, then continued. I realized that the most important thing in recovery isn't the medical procedures or the expensive equipment. It's having someone who refuses to give up on you. You never gave up on me, even when doctors weren't sure I would wake up. That's what mothers do. And Carlos? Maya asked softly. Carlos taught me that love is stronger than death. His love for you made you capable of loving me. In a way, he's part of our family, too. As Maya tucked Tyler in for the night, a ritual they had maintained even as he regained independence, she reflected on the extraordinary journey that had brought them together. A year ago, she had been a grieving mother, struggling to find meaning after devastating loss. Tonight, she was a mother again, legally and emotionally, to a remarkable young man who had chosen her as much as she had chosen him. "Maya," Tyler said sleepily, "will you sing me the Spanish lullaby? The one that helped me find my way back." Maya began humming "Duérmete, mi niño," the same song that had connected them during Tyler's darkest hours. As his breathing settled into the rhythm of natural sleep, she whispered a prayer of gratitude to Carlos's memory for guiding her to this new chapter of motherhood. Outside Tyler's window, the first snow of the season began to fall, covering the Hamilton estate in pristine white that symbolized the fresh start they had all embraced. Maya settled into her chair for what had become a comfortable ritual, updating Tyler's care journal with notes about his continued progress, his college application essays, and his plans to visit Puerto Rico the following summer to meet his new extended family. As Maya prepared for her own rest, Tyler stirred slightly and murmured in his sleep, "Thank you, Carlos. Thank you for sharing your mama with me." Maya smiled through her tears, finally understanding that love multiplies rather than divides, and that the greatest honor she could give Carlos's memory was to love another child with the same fierce devotion she had given her son. As they watched the first snow fall together, Tyler asks Maya if she thinks Carlos would be proud of them, and Maya responds, "Mijo, I know he brought us together," finally achieving complete peace with her past while embracing her future. In the quiet moments after Thanksgiving dinner, as snow began to fall outside the Hamilton estate, 3 lives had been forever changed by the simple power of unconditional care. Maya Rodriguez had discovered that love doesn't end with loss. It finds new ways to heal both the giver and receiver. Like a lamp glowing softly in a window, one person's kindness can guide us through the darkest passages of life, proving that families are built not by blood alone, but by the daily choice to show up with an open heart. Perhaps today, a simple act of compassion in your own community might plant the seeds for tomorrow's miracles.